Whether you're looking to do a New Game Plus or dominate the Shadow of the Erdtree DLC, this weapon is single-handedly going to help you bully all of the bosses in Elden Ring. And thank you to today's sponsor, AERO, where you can buy and sell Elden Ring items. Make sure to use code rivtekk for 3% off. This build starts first and foremost with the Dragon Hunter's Great Katana. For this video, mine is scaled to +10. I think it's well worth the Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone. As you can see from the attribute scaling, this is a quality weapon scaling to both strength and dex. Splitting the scaling between the two attributes allows you to maximize the most damage output. In a previous Faith Dex build, I had it set to 60, and I found that with the 50-50 split between strength and dex, that you got more damage. We'll get into the attributes later in the video. For my left hand, I'm using the Finger Seal +25 so that I can use Flame grant me strength and the Golden Bow. My build is solely based on appearance with the exception of Rakshasa's gauntlets. These grant about a 2% damage boost. My talismans are pretty standard for a build like this. I'm using the Dragon Crest talisman to negate damage. I'm also using the Godfrey icon to enhance my skill power, the Shard of Alexander for additional attack power, and the two-handed sword talisman that enhances attacks with two-handed weapons. At higher Shadow Tree levels and in New Game Plus in the base game, this weapon hits for insane damage. However, it's not as over-the-top ridiculous as some of the perfume builds that were doing upwards of 35,000 damage. At a base level with just the talismans and not using any incantation, you're hitting for about 2,500 damage a swing. In a New Game Plus, dealing 2,500 damage a hit, you're easily walking through the first half of the game. Squaring off with Margit and Godric feels like you're fighting the Soldier of God, Rick. With the right incantations and wondrous physick, you can deal up to 6,000 damage per hit. The weapon has a 55 blood loss buildup passive effect. If you couple that with a secondary weapon where you can use the Seppuku Ash of War or even a Blood Boil Aromatic, then you're going to build up that bleed status effect, which works really well on bosses like Mesmer. However, the passive effect isn't the only reason why we use this weapon. Because it's a great katana, it works really well at staggering enemies. With the Dragon Wound / weapon skill, you're taking down all dex-based bosses like R'hllana, Malenia, and Mesmer in 4 to 5 hits. Couple that with a wondrous physics mixture and that becomes even less hits. And as you may or may not have already noticed, the Dragon Wound / is the main purpose that we're using this weapon. It is by far one of the best skills in the entire game. Dragon Wound / has some pretty decent range on it, as you can see right here. I'm hitting Metter for 5,300 damage from that far away, with a follow-on attack to the side of 3,600. You have the ability to quick cast it for less damage or hold it down and charge it for even more damage. But as you can see in the footage right here, that comes at the cost of time. It takes a little bit of time to get that attack off. This leaves you vulnerable in the air, which is why I highly recommend equipping some sort of defensive talisman such as the Dragon Crest Great Shield for physical attacks, or the Flame Drake talisman, the Lightning Drake talisman, anything depending on the boss that you're facing, whatever negates the damage that they're dealing to you, you're gonna need that. Unless you're an expert at dodging, then you don't have to worry about what I just said. But I am not, as you can see. So we can do a little bit of build crafting with the wondrous physick depending on how you allocate your stats and your playstyle. Because we're taking a big stamina hit every time we use a Dragon Wound / I like to use the Green Burst Crystals tier, which temporarily boosts stamina recovery, so as you're attacking, your endurance is slowly replenishing. If you wanted to double down on stamina recovery, you could also add the Two-Headed Turtle Talisman. So for that second Wondrous Physick tier spot, there's 4 options that I would recommend, and again, this is based on your playstyle. If you're looking to deal heavy damage with the Dragon Wound / I highly recommend the Spike Crack tier. This is going to give you 15% additional damage for your charge attack. If you want to go the stagger route, say you're going against an enemy with very low poise, probably a dex-based character, then you're going to want to go with the Stone Barbed Crack tier, because what this does is it grants you a 30% stance damage. This hurts the poise. This attack, coupled with the Stone Barbed tier, also helps to take out mounts of mounted enemies, such as the Horse of the Tree Sentinel and Knight's Cavalry. If you're a player who's non-evasive and dodge challenged, then I recommend the Opaline Bubble tier, as it will grant you a 90% damage negation for up to 3 minutes unless you get hit. And if you really get hit a lot, you can go with the Opaline Hard tier that just gives you a 15% damage negation for 3 minutes without the bubble around you. This will allow you to get hit more than once, unlike the Bubble tier. I use Flame Grant Me Strength and Golden Vow to increase my physical damage, stamina recovery speed, and attack power. Pretty standard in a lot of damage output based builds. The weapon also has another cool feature where it does a ton of damage to dragons. As you can see right there, I did 6,300 damage to Bale the Dread. If you're going through a new game plus and you're hitting up all the dragons throughout the map, this is the weapon to use, as it does a ton of damage. As you can see right there, that was a light slash and I'm hitting him for 2,500. Once you get into the big charged heavy attacks, you're hitting for 4,500, 6,000, depending on the range and the duration that you hold down the button. Just look how fast we take Bale into his second phase. And lastly, we'll cover my stats. As you can see right here, full transparency, level 2, 25, 60 vigor. Highly recommend 60 vigor for going into Shadow of the Erdtree. That's a pretty standard vigor. Mind, we're at 39 just because we're using that skill. We don't want to use as many cerulean tier flasks. For our endurance, 40 because we use a lot of stamina. This is what I was talking about earlier. My strength and my dex are split between 55. I have a little bit of points to throw around. Depending on your level that you're at, I'd recommend, if you're lower level, do 40-40, 50-50. My intelligence is at 20. Faith is at 25, just so that I can use Flame Grant Me Strength and Golden Vow. The minimum faith requirement for Golden Vow is 25. Keeping a medium equipment load for rolling. And I also have Radahn's Great Rune. I use this one because it boosts maximum HP, FP, and stamina, and we can always use more of those. Overall, this is an excellent sword and build that I believe that any player can take into New Game Plus and be successful. With the exception of maybe the two-handed talisman, most players will have all of the items that are required for this build. The two-handed talisman isn't found until a little bit later, almost towards the end of the DLC. There's not too much of a barrier to entry with this weapon other than completing the quest line of fighting the Ancient Dragon Man in order to unlock it. Once you get the weapon, it's pretty much just spamming LB and looking for the correct mixtures of item to amplify damage output. There's also a lot of utility with this build as well. Like I said earlier in the video, you can take a weapon such as a Katana and you can put seppuku on that, and then you could turn this into a blood build. Or if you want to go the strength route, you can throw on a Great Shield and the Sir More armor and go straight berserker on everybody. It's really up to you and your imagination on this one. Alright guys, just wanted to make this quick video, share with you what's been working for me. I want to know your opinion down in the comments. Let me know, what would you do to improve this build? What items would you add to it or take away from it? Feel free to let me know down in the comments, and if you're ever interested in watching me play Elden Ring live, I go live on TikTok and YouTube. You can follow me on either one of those. And as always, if you found this video entertaining, helpful, or informative, please make sure to hit that like button, and if you dig Elden Ring content, make sure to subscribe. Subscribing is absolutely free to do. I've been rivtekk. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.